The shocking beauty standards of medieval women. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Tonight, we're traveling back to medieval Europe, to a time when beauty wasn't just about looking good, it was about surviving society's impossible standards. You're about to discover what it really meant to be a woman trying to meet the beauty expectations of the Middle Ages, and trust me, it's going to make your worst bad hair day seem like a blessing. So settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and prepare to wake up in a world where beauty could literally kill you. You wake slowly, your head pounding, with the dull ache that's become as familiar as breathing. The morning light filters weakly through the oiled parchment that serves as your window, casting a sickly yellow glow across the rough wooden floor of your chamber. But this isn't any ordinary morning headache. This is the price you pay for beauty in the year 1347. Your scalp burns where you applied the latest hair treatment last night, a mixture of pigeon dung honey and ground pearls that your mother swears will give you the golden locks that men supposedly desire. The smell still clings to your hair like a rotting bouquet, and you wonder, not for the first time, if perhaps the nuns at the abbey had the right idea when they covered their heads completely. You sit up slowly, your corset creaking in protest. Yes, even sleeping you wear it, because God forbid someone see you with your natural waist intact. The whalebone presses into your ribs with each breath, a constant reminder that your body in its natural state is apparently offensive to both God and society. Your maid Agnes enters without knocking. Privacy is a luxury you can't afford even in your own chambers. She carries a basin of what might charitably be called water, though the brown tinge suggests it's been used for several purposes before reaching your room. "Time for your morning beautification, my lady," she says, and you catch the slight eye roll she thinks you can't see. Agnes has been with your family for 20 years, and she's watched this daily ritual destroy more women than the plague. You shuffle to the small mirror, a piece of polished metal that makes everyone look like they're viewing themselves through muddy water. What stares back at you would horrify a modern woman, but by medieval standards, you're making progress. Your forehead, once naturally proportioned, now stretches up nearly to the crown of your head. This masterpiece of medieval beauty required months of painful plucking one hair at a time until your hairline retreated like a monk's tonsure. The high forehead is all the rage, they say. It shows intelligence, refinement, breeding. What it actually shows is your willingness to endure mind-numbing pain for fashion. But the forehead is just the beginning. Your eyebrows, those natural arches that once framed your eyes, have been plucked into near extinction. What remains are two thin, barely visible lines that make you look perpetually surprised. Some women pluck them off entirely, painting new ones higher up with burnt cork, creating expressions of permanent bewilderment. Your skin, once naturally olive-toned from your Mediterranean heritage, has been transformed through months of aggressive treatment into something resembling parchment left out in rain. The pale, almost translucent complexion that's considered the height of beauty requires daily applications of white lead paint mixed with vinegar. Yes, lead. The same substance that will slowly poison you, cause your hair to fall out, and eventually kill you, but at least you'll die fashionable. Agnes begins laying out your beauty supplies with the solemnity of a priest preparing for Mass. There's the lead paint, of course, thick and white as fresh snow. The mercury-based rouge that will give your cheeks that coveted deathly pallor while slowly destroying your nervous system. The antimony for your eyes, a metallic substance that makes them look mysteriously dark and sultry, assuming it doesn't blind you first. "Shall we begin with the bleeding, my lady?" Agnes asks, holding up a small, sharp knife. Ah, yes, the bleeding. Because apparently your natural blood is too robust, too vigorous for true beauty. Medieval physicians believed that women's blood runs too hot, too red, too alive. To achieve the proper pale, ethereal beauty, you must literally drain the life from yourself. You extend your arm, and Agnes makes a small cut near your wrist. The blood flows bright red into a small bowl, and you watch it with a mixture of fascination and horror. This is beauty. This is what men desire. A woman so pale, so weak, so literally bloodless that she appears to be hovering on the edge of death. Because in medieval Europe, the ideal woman doesn't just look delicate, she looks like she might expire at any moment from the sheer effort of existing. The irony isn't lost on you that in a world where most people die young from disease, starvation, or violence, the beauty standard requires you to appear as close to death as possible while somehow remaining alive enough to attract a husband. As the blood drains from your arm, you feel that familiar lightheadedness that your mother calls the glow of true femininity. You call it what it is, the early stages of anemia. But who are you to argue with? Centuries of tradition. Agnes wraps your arm in a strip of linen that's been used for this purpose so many times, it's permanently stained brown. Tomorrow you'll do this again, and the day after, because maintaining the perfect pale complexion isn't a one-time effort. It's a daily commitment to slowly killing yourself. You catch your reflection in the mirror again, and for just a moment you wonder what you would look like with your natural coloring, your natural hairline, your natural eyebrows. But the thought passes quickly. Such ideas are dangerous. They lead to accusations of vanity or worse, witchcraft. Better to look like a living corpse than to risk looking like yourself. The morning beauty routine has barely begun, and already you feel exhausted. But this is just the start. Over the next several hours, you'll transform from a human being into a medieval man's ideal of feminine perfection, even if it kills you. Which, statistically speaking, it very well might. Agnes now approaches with what looks like a painter's palette, but instead of oils and pigments, it holds an array of substances that would make a modern toxicologist faint. This is your makeup collection, each item more dangerous than the last, each application bringing you closer to the medieval ideal of feminine beauty. We'll start with the foundation, my lady, Agnes says, stirring the white lead paint with a brush made from squirrel hair. The consistency is that of thick cream, but the smell is metallic, sharp, and somehow wrong. Your nose has learned to associate this scent with beauty the way others might associate the smell of bread with comfort. You close your eyes as Agnes begins applying the lead paint to your face with practiced strokes. The substance is cold against your skin, and within minutes you feel the familiar tightening sensation as it begins to dry. This isn't makeup that enhances your natural features. This is a mask that completely obliterates them. The lead paint covers everything, your natural skin tone, any freckles or marks that might hint at time spent outdoors, even the natural flush that comes from being young and healthy. By the time Agnes is finished, you look like a statue carved from marble, beautiful and lifeless. But here's what Agnes doesn't tell you, what no one talks about in polite society. This lead paint is slowly killing you. Every day you wear it, a little more seeps into your skin, into your bloodstream. It's cumulative. The women who've been using it for years develop a characteristic tremor in their hands. Their hair falls out in patches. Their teeth loosen and fall from their gums. The most devoted followers of fashion, the ones who never appear in public without their white lead faces, often develop what physicians politely call the beauty sickness seizures paralysis and eventually death. But they die pale and fashionable and in medieval society, that's considered a fair trade. Now for the rouge, my lady Agnes continues reaching for a small pot of red paste. This isn't the rouge of later centuries made from harmless plants and minerals. This is mercury-based, designed to give your cheeks and lips a subtle red tint that suggests health without actually indicating it. The mercury rouge has a consistency like thick honey, and when Agnes applies it to your cheeks with a small brush, it creates a lovely natural-looking flush. What it also creates is mercury poisoning. The symptoms start small, a slight tremor, some hair loss, problems with memory. But over time, the mercury accumulates in your brain, causing madness, paralysis, and death. There's a reason why so many fashionable ladies of the medieval court are known for their erratic behavior, their sudden fits of rage or melancholy. It's not feminine hysteria, it's mercury poisoning. But society prefers to blame women's natural temperament rather than admit that the beauty standards are literally driving them insane. Agnes now reaches for the antimony, a metallic substance used to darken the eyes. In its natural form, antimony is a silvery white metal that becomes a dark powder when ground. Mixed with animal fat or oil, it creates a dramatic eye makeup that makes your eyes appear larger, more mysterious, more alluring. The application process requires extreme precision. Using a thin stick, Agnes carefully lines your upper and lower eyelids with the antimony mixture. The result is striking. Your eyes seem to glow against the white of your face, dark and hypnotic. But antimony is toxic. It causes skin irritation, eye infections, and with prolonged use, blindness. Many women who use antimony regularly develop chronic eye problems, redness, swelling, and a gradual deterioration of vision. Some go completely blind by middle-aged victims of their dedication to beauty. The irony is perfect. In pursuing beautiful eyes, medieval women destroy their ability to see. Agnes steps back to admire her work. You look in the mirror and see a creature that is both beautiful and terrifying. Your face is white as snow, your cheeks touched with the faintest hint of pink, your eyes dark and mysterious. You look like a medieval painting of the Virgin Mary, if the Virgin Mary had been designed by someone with a very disturbing imagination. Perfect, my lady, Agnes says, but you notice she's careful not to touch your face. Even your loyal maid knows better than to make direct contact with the poisonous substances that make you beautiful. This is the central contradiction of medieval beauty. To be attractive, women must make themselves toxic, literally poisonous to touch, dangerous to kiss, harmful even to themselves. The medieval beauty ideal isn't just unrealistic, it's actively lethal. You stand carefully mindful not to disturb your freshly painted face. The lead paint is still drying, creating a tight mask-like feeling that restricts your facial expressions. Smiling becomes difficult. Laughing is nearly impossible. Even speaking requires careful consideration, lest you crack your beautiful facade. This is fine, of course. Medieval society doesn't expect beautiful women to be particularly expressive anyway. Silence is golden, literally, when your face is worth more than your personality. But the morning beauty routine is far from over. You've achieved the proper complexion, but now comes the real challenge: your hair. In medieval Europe, hair is a woman's crowning glory, but like everything else about medieval beauty, achieving the perfect hairstyle requires suffering creativity and a disturbing willingness to use substances that would be illegal in a modern cosmetics lab. Agnes leads you to a chair positioned near the window where the morning light will help her see the full scope of the hair project ahead. Your natural brown locks, which you sometimes think are rather pretty, are apparently the wrong color, the wrong texture, and definitely the wrong length for current fashion. The medieval ideal requires hair that is golden blonde, thick as rope, and long enough to sit on. Your hair is none of these things, but that's what beauty treatments are for. Agnes begins by applying the hair bleaching mixture that was prepared last night. This delightful concoction contains urine, preferably from a young boy, as it's considered more potent alum honey and saffron. The urine provides the ammonia needed for bleaching. The alum acts as a mordant to help the color take the honey conditions, the hair, and the saffron provides the golden tone that's so fashionable. The smell is indescribable. Imagine wet dog mixed with public latrine with just a hint of expensive spice. This mixture is applied liberally to your hair from root to tip and then covered with a cloth to let it work its magic. But the bleaching process doesn't stop there. After several hours, Agnes will rinse out the urine mixture and apply a second treatment, a paste made from ground pearls, pigeon dung, and white wine. The pearls are supposed to add shine. The pigeon dung provides additional ammonia for continued bleaching, and the white wine helps everything bind together into a paste that can be spread evenly through your hair. This second treatment will remain in your hair overnight, covered with a cloth cap to prevent the mixture from rubbing off on your pillow. By morning, your hair will be several shades lighter and smell like something dyed in it. The process is repeated weekly for months until your hair achieves the desired golden hue. The side effects include severe scalp irritation, hair breakage, and permanent damage to your hair follicles. Many women lose significant amounts of hair to this process, requiring them to supplement their own locks with hair pieces made from the hair of corpses. Yes, corpses. Hair doesn't decay as quickly as other body parts. So enterprising merchants collect hair from the recently deceased and sell it to fashionable ladies who need to supplement their own bleach-damaged locks. You try not to think about whose head your hairpiece once adorned or how they died, but even with damaged hair supplemented by dead people's locks, you're not done. The shape of your hairline requires constant maintenance. That high forehead that's so fashionable doesn't happen naturally, it requires vigilant plucking. Agnes produces a pair of tweezers and begins the painstaking process of removing every hair that has dared to grow in the wrong place. Each pluck is a small, sharp pain, and there are hundreds of them. Your forehead, your temples, the back of your neck all must be kept hairless to achieve the proper silhouette. The pain brings tears to your eyes, but crying would disturb your makeup, so you force yourself to remain still and silent. This is beauty. This is what it means to be a desirable woman in medieval society. As Agnes works, you reflect on the irony that in a world where most women cover their hair completely in public, the pursuit of perfect hair requires such extraordinary effort and expense. You'll spend hours achieving a look that will be hidden under a veil the moment you step outside. But that's the point, isn't it? Beauty in medieval society isn't about being seen, it's about the suffering required to achieve it. It's about proving that you're willing to endure pain, expense, and slow poisoning for the sake of feminine ideals. It's about demonstrating that you value your appearance more than your health, your comfort, or your safety. Because in a world where women have few rights and fewer options, beauty becomes both a weapon and a prison. It's the only power society allows women to have, and it comes at the cost of everything else. With your face properly painted and your hair adequately tortured, it's time to address your body. And in medieval Europe, the female body is considered fundamentally wrong in almost every possible way. Too curved here, not curved enough there, too healthy, too natural, too obviously human. The solution naturally is to reconstruct it entirely. Agnes unlaces the simple gown you wore for your beauty treatments, revealing the complex architecture of medieval shapewear beneath. You're already wearing a chemise, a linen undershirt that serves as a barrier between your skin and the more elaborate contraptions to come. Over this, you wear a blie-out, a fitted undergarment that's designed to smooth your natural silhouette into something more appealing to medieval sensibilities. But the real magic happens with the corset. Medieval corsets aren't the relatively gentle versions you might imagine from later periods. These are instruments of torture disguised as undergarments designed to create a silhouette that defies human anatomy. Made from layers of linen stiffened with whalebone wood or metal, they're essentially wearable cages designed to compress your rib cage, push up your breasts, and create the impossibly tiny waist that medieval men apparently find irresistible. Agnes begins the lacing process with the solemnity of a knight preparing for battle. The corset goes on over your chemise, and Agnes begins pulling the laces tight. First the bottom, then the middle, then the top, then back down again, each pass pulling the garment tighter against your ribs. You've been wearing corsets since you were 12, so your rib cage has been gradually molding to this shape for years, but it never becomes comfortable. Each breath is a conscious effort. Deep breathing is impossible. Sudden movements can cause you to faint from lack of oxygen. The pressure on your internal organs is constant and intense. Your stomach is compressed to roughly half its natural size, which means you can only eat tiny portions of food without becoming violently ill. Your liver and spleen are pushed upward, creating a constant dull ache in your side. Your lungs can't fully expand, leaving you perpetually short of breath. But look at that waist. It's tiny, impossibly narrow, completely unnatural, and absolutely perfect according to medieval beauty standards. Agnes continues lacing, pulling each cord tight enough to leave permanent indentations in your flesh. The whalebone stays pressed into your ribs with each breath, creating a grid of pressure points that will leave bruises by evening. This is normal. This is expected. This is what it means to be a properly dressed medieval woman. The corset creates the illusion that your waist is smaller than your head, which medieval physicians believe is the ideal proportion for feminine beauty. Never mind that this proportion is physically impossible for a healthy human being. Never mind that achieving it requires crushing your internal organs and restricting your breathing. What matters is that you look like a medieval man's fantasy of femininity, even if it kills you, and it might. Tight lacing, as this practice is known, causes numerous health problems. Compressed organs don't function properly. Restricted breathing leads to fainting spells. The constant pressure on your rib cage can cause permanent deformation. Some women's ribs actually crack under the pressure. But the most dangerous effect is what happens to your reproductive system. The constant pressure on your abdomen pushes your uterus and ovaries out of their natural position. Menstruation becomes more painful. Pregnancy becomes more dangerous. Childbirth becomes a potential death sentence. Medieval physicians are well aware of these risks, but they consider them acceptable trade-offs for beauty. After all, a woman's primary function is to be ornamental. If the ornamentation process causes medical problems, well, that's simply the price of femininity. Agnes finishes with the corset and steps back to admire her work. Your silhouette is now geometrically impossible, a tiny waist that flares out to normal hips, creating the cone shape that medieval fashion demands. You look like a Bella flower, a mathematical proof that human anatomy is merely a suggestion. But we're not done reshaping your body yet. Next comes the positioning of your breasts, which in their natural state are apparently positioned all wrong. Medieval fashion requires that your breasts be pushed as high as possible, creating a shelf-like appearance that makes it look like you might tip over at any moment. This is achieved through a combination of tight binding and strategic padding, creating cleavage that defies gravity and probably several laws of physics. Agnes begins wrapping long strips of linen around your upper torso, binding your breasts upward and inward until they're compressed into the desired shape. The binding is tight enough to cut off circulation, turning your skin a mottled red and white. Your breasts go numb within minutes, a sensation that you've learned to ignore. The binding creates what medieval poets call a window to the soul, though what they're actually describing is a deep line of cleavage that makes it look like you might spill out of your dress at any moment. This is considered modest because the breasts themselves are covered. The fact that they're presented like offerings on a platter is apparently irrelevant. Over the binding goes additional padding, lamb's wool, linen scraps, sometimes even small bags of sand to create the perfect spherical shape that medieval men apparently find irresistible. Your breasts, which naturally have a certain soft human quality, are now hard round and positioned at roughly the level of your collarbone. You can barely feel them anymore, which is probably for the best. The combination of tight binding and upward pressure has cut off most of the sensation. You've heard that some women lose feeling in their breasts permanently from this practice, but you try not to think about it. The final step in body modification is the padding of your hips. Medieval fashion requires that your lower body be as wide as possible, creating the bell-shaped silhouette that's currently fashionable. This is achieved through the strategic placement of cushions, rolled fabric, and sometimes even small wooden frames that extend your hips outward. Agnes ties on a series of padded bolsters that make your hips appear twice their natural width. The padding extends from your waist to your thighs, creating a silhouette that makes walking an adventure and sitting an impossibility. You're now roughly 3 times your natural width at the hips and half your natural width at the waist. You look like a geometric puzzle, a mathematical impossibility, a testament to the power of medieval engineering. You also can't breathe properly, can't eat normally, can't move freely, and can't feel large portions of your own body. But you look exactly like the medieval ideal of feminine beauty, and that's what matters. Agnes brings you a mirror, and you stare at the reflection in fascination and horror. The person looking back at you bears only a passing resemblance to the woman who woke up this morning. That woman had a natural waist, naturally positioned breasts, and a face that could smile without cracking. This woman looks like she was designed by committee, each feature calculated for maximum visual impact rather than human comfort. She's beautiful in the way that a piece of architecture is beautiful, admirable from a distance, but probably not particularly pleasant to live in. You try to take a deep breath and immediately regret it. The corset prevents your rib cage from expanding, and the binding around your chest makes it impossible to fully inflate your lungs. You're getting perhaps half the oxygen you need, which explains the slight dizziness that's become your constant companion. You try to turn your head to look at yourself from the side, but the combination of lead paint and tight binding makes movement difficult. The paint cracks slightly when you turn, creating small fissures in your perfect white complexion that will need to be touched up before you're seen in public. This is beauty. This is what it means to be a desirable woman in medieval society. You are a work of art, a masterpiece of artificial creation, a triumph of human ingenuity over natural form. You are also slowly suffocating, mildly poisoned, and completely immobilized. But at least you're fashionable. Now comes the moment you've been preparing for all morning, getting dressed. And in medieval Europe, getting dressed doesn't mean putting on clothes. It means being assembled like a complex piece of machinery, layer by layer, until you transform from a human being into a walking display of wealth status and your family's commitment to keeping you looking like an expensive ornament. Agnes approaches with what can only be described as the first layer of your architectural ensemble, the cote, a fitted gown that will serve as the foundation for everything else. Made from silk imported from Constantinople at a cost that could feed a peasant family for a year, it's dyed a deep blue using lapis lazuli ground into powder and mixed with oils that took months to prepare. The cotte is designed to fit your newly constructed body like a second skin. Every curve created by your corset, every strategic padding placement, every impossible angle of your silhouette is accommodated by this garment. It's less clothing than it is a fabric sculpture designed to display your altered form. Agnes begins the process of getting you into this dress, which requires the same level of engineering precision as constructing a cathedral. The sleeves alone are a marvel of medieval tailoring, fitted so tightly that they require individual lacing up your arms from wrist to shoulder with dozens of tiny silk ties. Each sleeve takes 15 minutes to properly lace, during which you must keep your arms perfectly still. The fabric is cut so precisely that any deviation from the intended arm position will cause it to wrinkle, bunch, or worse, tear. A torn sleeve means starting over with a new dress, assuming your family can afford the replacement. The bodice of the cotta requires even more precise fitting. Agnes must lace it so tightly that it conforms exactly to your corseted torso, but not so tightly that it interferes with the carefully constructed silhouette beneath. This requires a delicate balance. Too loose, and you'll look sloppy; too tight, and you'll alter the intended shape. As Agnes works, you become increasingly aware of how little control you have over your own body. The tight sleeves mean you can't bend your arms normally. The fitted bodice means you can't twist your torso. The long skirt, which pools around your feet in carefully arranged folds, means you can't see where you're stepping. But the cotte is just the beginning. Over it goes the surcotte, an even more elaborate overgarment that's designed to display your family's wealth and social position. This garment is made from cloth of gold, a fabric woven with actual gold thread that catches and reflects light with every movement. The surcotte is sleeveless, designed to show off the expensive silk of the cotte beneath. But it makes up for the lack of sleeves with an abundance of everything else: a train that extends 6 feet behind you, a neckline that's cut so low it barely covers the binding around your breasts, and side panels that are slit nearly to your waist to reveal the costly fabric beneath. Agnes must position each element of the surcotte with mathematical precision. The train must fall in exactly the right folds, creating a pattern that's both visually appealing and symbolically significant. The side slits must align perfectly to reveal the maximum amount of expensive fabric without looking immodest. The neckline must be positioned to create the most flattering display of your artificially positioned cleavage. This process takes another 30 minutes, during which you must remain absolutely motionless. Any shift in position could disturb the careful arrangement of fabric, requiring Agnes to start over. But even the surcotte isn't the final layer. Over it goes a mantle, a cloak-like garment that's designed to frame your entire ensemble. Made from ermine fur imported from the frozen north at a cost that could purchase a small castle, it's lined with silk and trimmed with pearls that were individually selected for their perfect roundness and lustrous shine. The mantle is held in place by a chain of gold links, each one individually crafted by master goldsmiths and set with precious stones. The chain is heavy, nearly 10 pounds of gold and gems, and it presses down on your shoulders with significant weight. Combined with the weight of all the fabric layers beneath, you're now carrying approximately 30 pounds of clothing. 30 pounds. That's like wearing a small child on your back all day, except the weight is distributed in ways that make movement even more difficult. The heavy mantle pulls on your shoulders and neck. The train of your surcotte drags behind you, requiring you to walk in a very specific way to avoid tripping. The tight sleeves restrict your arm movement. The narrow waist of your corset makes bending impossible. Agnes now approaches with your jewelry because apparently 30 pounds of clothing isn't enough ornamentation for a properly dressed medieval lady. Medieval jewelry isn't the delicate, tasteful pieces you might imagine. These are statements of power, wealth, and the complete willingness to wear your family's entire fortune on your body. First comes the headdress, a complex construction of wire fabric and precious stones that's designed to frame your face and display your family's wealth. This particular headdress is made from gold wire, shaped into intricate patterns and covered with silk fabric that matches your surcoat. Pearls hang from every available surface, creating a curtain of white spheres that catches the light when you move your head. The headdress weighs several pounds and is held in place by pins that are driven directly into your hair and occasionally your scalp. It's not removable without assistance, which means that once it's on, you're committed to wearing it until Agnes can carefully disassemble it later tonight. Next come the necklaces, multiple chains of gold set with rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, each one worth more than most people will see in their lifetime. The chains layer over each other, creating a cascade of precious metals and stones that covers your chest from collarbone to the edge of your neckline. The weight of the necklaces adds another 5 pounds to your ensemble and creates pressure points where the chains rest against your artificially positioned breasts. By evening, you'll have indentations in your skin that match the pattern of the jewelry. The rings come next, not just one or two, but rings on every finger, including your thumbs. Medieval fashion requires that wealthy women display their rings prominently, which means wearing as many as possible. Each ring is individually crafted, set with precious stones, and sized to fit over the gloves you'll wear when you go outside. The rings add weight to your hands and make fine motor tasks nearly impossible. Picking up small objects becomes difficult. Writing is almost out of the question. Even eating requires careful attention to avoid knocking your rings against your plate or cup. Finally, Agnes approaches with your shoes, and here's where medieval fashion reveals its true commitment to impracticality. These aren't shoes in any functional sense. They're fabric sculptures designed to complement your outfit while making walking as difficult as possible. Made from the same silk as your cot and dyed to match exactly, they have pointed toes that extend nearly 6 inches beyond your actual feet. The points are stuffed with lamb's wool to maintain their shape, and they're so narrow that your toes are compressed into a space roughly half their natural width. The shoes are held on by ribbons that lace up your legs to just below the knee, creating a web of silk ties that look elegant but make it impossible to put the shoes on or take them off without assistance. Once they're on, you're committed to wearing them for the entire day. Walking in these shoes requires a complete relearning of how to move. The extended toes mean you can't see where your feet actually end, leading to frequent stumbles and falls. The narrow shape means your feet go numb within an hour. The pointed design means that any uneven surface becomes a potential hazard. Agnes steps back to admire the completed ensemble, and you catch your reflection in the mirror. The transformation is complete. You now look like a medieval manuscript illustration come to life, impossibly ornate, geometrically precise, and utterly divorced from any practical consideration. You are wearing approximately 40 pounds of clothing and jewelry. You cannot bend at the waist, turn your head freely, or take a full breath. Your feet are numb. Your hands are weighted down with rings, and your scalp is punctured by decorative pins. You can barely move, can't sit down normally, and definitely can't run if something goes wrong. But you look exactly like a medieval nobleman's ideal of feminine beauty and refinement. Agnes opens the door to your chamber, and you begin the careful process of walking. Each step must be calculated, deliberate, and slow. The train of your dress must be managed with each movement. The pointed toes of your shoes must be carefully placed to avoid catching on uneven stones. The weight of your headdress requires you to hold your head in a very specific position. You are no longer a human being who happens to be wearing clothes. You are a clothes-wearing entity that happens to contain a human being somewhere deep inside all those layers of silk, gold, and precious stones. This is fashion. This is beauty. This is what it means to be a properly dressed woman in medieval society. And you haven't even left your room yet. The moment you step outside your private chambers, you enter what can only be described as a medieval beauty pageant that never ends. Every eye that falls upon you is judging, evaluating, and comparing your appearance to impossible standards that somehow keep getting more impossible. The Great Hall of the castle is your first testing ground, and it's filled with the kind of people who have made competitive judgment into an art form. Noble ladies whose entire identity revolves around maintaining their position in the intricate hierarchy of medieval fashion. Their husbands who view their wives' appearance as a direct reflection of their wealth and power. Clergy members who consider feminine beauty both a divine gift and a dangerous temptation. Servants who know exactly how much each element of your outfit costs and are silently calculating whether their lives will ever be worth that much. You begin the careful process of navigating the Great Hall, which requires the movement skills of a chess master and the balance of a circus performer. Your pointed shoes catch on the uneven stone floor with each step. Your train drags behind you, collecting dust debris and the occasional small dog that gets too close. Your headdress makes peripheral vision impossible, so you can't see obstacles approaching from the sides. But the physical challenges are nothing compared to the social ones. As you move through the hall, you can hear the whispered commentary that follows in your wake like a toxic cloud. Look at Lady Eleanor's complexion, hisses one woman to another. So pale and refined. Though I heard she uses lead paint twice daily. Her maid told my maid that her hair is falling out in patches. The width of her hips is perfection, observes a male courtier. Exactly the proportions that produce healthy sons, though I wonder if she can actually bear children given how tightly she's laced. That headdress must weigh more than a suit of armor, another woman comments, not bothering to lower her voice. I heard that Lady Margaret collapsed last week from wearing one half that size. They had to cut her out of her corset. You continue your slow procession through the hall, pretending not to hear the running commentary on your appearance. This is normal. This is expected. In medieval society, a woman's body is public property subject to constant evaluation and critique. Your appearance is not your own. It belongs to your family, your husband, your social circle, and really anyone who feels entitled to have an opinion about it. A group of younger women watches you with a mixture of admiration and calculation. They're studying every detail of your outfit, taking mental notes on the cut of your sleeves, the arrangement of your jewelry, the precise shade of your lead-whitened complexion. Tomorrow, they'll attempt to recreate elements of your look, assuming their families can afford it. But they're also noting any imperfections, any signs that your beauty routine might be slipping. The slight crack in your makeup where you turned your head too quickly, the way your left shoulder droops slightly under the weight of your mantle, the fact that you're breathing through your mouth because your nose is partially blocked by the antimony eye makeup. These observations will become tomorrow's gossip, shared in whispered conversations and knowing glances. In medieval society, other women are simultaneously your greatest allies and your most dangerous competitors. They understand the suffering required to achieve beauty because they're enduring it themselves, but they're also eager to point out when you're not suffering quite enough. You approach a group of older ladies who represent the pinnacle of medieval feminine achievement. These are women who have survived decades of beauty routines that would kill most people, and they wear their survival like armor. Their faces are masks of white lead paint applied so thickly that their expressions are frozen in permanent serenity. Their hair, what remains of it after years of bleaching treatments, is supplemented with elaborate wigs made from the hair of dead peasant women. My dear, says Lady Beatrice, the unofficial leader of this group, you look absolutely divine. That shade of blue is perfection. Though, she pauses, tilting her head to examine you more closely. Perhaps the rouge could be applied more subtly. One doesn't want to appear too healthy. This is delivered with a smile that doesn't move the muscles around her eyes since the lead paint has essentially paralyzed half her face. But the criticism is real. In medieval beauty culture, looking too healthy is a serious social error. Health suggests vigor, activity, perhaps even outdoor work, all marks of the lower classes. The ideal medieval woman appears to be slowly wasting away from some romantic affliction too delicate for the harsh realities of life. You make a mental note to have Agnes apply less rouge tomorrow, even though you're already so pale that people sometimes check to see if you're still breathing. And that corset, continues Lady Constance, another member of the group. Marvelously tight, though I do hope you're not laced so tightly that you can't fulfill your wifely duties. A woman's primary function is still reproduction, regardless of fashion. The casual discussion of your reproductive capabilities in public is also normal. Medieval society views women's bodies as instruments for producing heirs, and every aspect of your appearance is evaluated in terms of how it might affect your ability to conceive, carry, and deliver healthy male children. The fact that your corset is compressed so tightly that it's displacing your internal organs is concerning only insofar as it might interfere with pregnancy, your comfort, your health, your ability to breathe. These are secondary considerations at best. A young knight approaches your group, and all conversation stops. This is the moment that all the morning's preparation has been leading toward the opportunity to be admired by a potential suitor. Every element of your appearance has been calculated to attract masculine attention, while simultaneously demonstrating your family's wealth and your own dedication to the pursuit of impossible beauty standards. The knight. Sir Geoffrey is everything a medieval woman is supposed to desire. He's young, reasonably attractive, wealthy enough to afford his own armor, and sufficiently dim-witted that he's unlikely to have complicated opinions about anything. He's also examining you with the same intensity that he might bring to purchasing a horse, checking your teeth, evaluating your proportions, assessing your general health and breeding potential. Lady Eleanor, he says, bowing slightly, you look remarkably pale today. Have you been bleeding regularly? This is apparently a compliment. In medieval courtship, inquiring about a woman's bloodletting schedule is considered romantic interest. It shows that he cares about your commitment to maintaining the proper complexion and is willing to discuss the medical procedures required to achieve it. Twice weekly, you reply because this is the current fashion among women of your social class, though I'm considering increasing it to daily. Lady Margaret achieves such a lovely translucent quality with daily bleeding. Sir Geoffrey nods approvingly. Excellent. And your waist, may I? He gestures as if he'd like to measure your corseted torso with his hands, which is apparently acceptable behavior in medieval courtship. You extend your arms slightly, and he places his hands around your waist. His fingers nearly touch, which is exactly the reaction your corset is designed to produce. Never mind that this measurement bears no relationship to your actual anatomy, or that achieving it requires crushing your organs into new and unnatural positions. Perfect, he declares. You could bear strong sons with a waist this narrow. This is medieval logic at its finest. A waist so tightly corseted that it's displaced your uterus is somehow ideal for childbearing. But questioning this logic would be tantamount to questioning the entire foundation of medieval beauty culture, and that way lies accusations of witchcraft. The conversation continues in this vein for several more minutes, with Sir Geoffrey evaluating various aspects of your appearance while you stand perfectly still and try not to faint from lack of oxygen. This is romance in medieval times, a detailed assessment of your conformity to beauty standards that are slowly killing you. Finally, Sir Geoffrey takes his leave, apparently satisfied with your dedication to self-destruction in the name of beauty. The group of older ladies immediately surrounds you with feedback on your performance. You handled that beautifully, says Lady Beatrice, though next time you might mention your family's bloodline when he asks about childbearing. Men do appreciate good breeding stock. Being compared to livestock is also normal. Medieval women are valued primarily for their reproductive potential and their ability to demonstrate their family's wealth through increasingly elaborate and dangerous beauty routines. Your individual personality, your thoughts, your dreams. These are luxury items that society doesn't consider particularly important. The morning's social gauntlet is finally over, and you're allowed to retire to a small anteroom where you can rest before the afternoon's activities. Agnes helps you to a specially designed chair that accommodates your impossibly wide skirts and prevents you from sitting on your train. Sitting, you discover, is almost impossible in your current outfit. The corset prevents you from bending at the waist, so you must perch on the edge of the chair with your back perfectly straight. The tight sleeves mean you can't rest your arms naturally. The headdress requires you to hold your head in a very specific position to avoid disturbing the delicate arrangement of pearls and gold wire. You're essentially a beautiful statue that happens to be alive, posed in a chair for display purposes. Agnes brings you a small cup of watered wine, which is all you can manage given the compression of your stomach. Eating a full meal would be impossible. Your corset has reduced your stomach capacity to roughly that of a walnut. Most fashionable women exist on a diet of thin broths, small fruits, and lots of wine, which helps dull the constant pain of their beauty routines. As you sip your wine, you reflect on the morning's experiences. You've successfully demonstrated your family's wealth, your own dedication to beauty, and your willingness to endure significant physical discomfort for the sake of social approval. You've been evaluated, critiqued, and approved by the various authorities on medieval feminine beauty. You've also been slowly poisoned by lead paint, partially suffocated by your corset, and reduced to a walking display of expensive fabrics and precious metals. But this is only the morning. The day is far from over, and medieval beauty standards don't take breaks. After your brief rest, Agnes announces that it's time for the afternoon's activities, which will test your beauty routine in ways that the morning's social display could never imagine. Because medieval life doesn't pause for fashion and maintaining perfect beauty while navigating the practical demands of daily existence is where the real challenge begins. Your first trial is the simple act of eating. The Great Hall has been set for the midday meal, and you must navigate not only the physical challenges of your outfit, but also the complex social protocols that govern how a properly beautiful woman should consume food. The walk to your seat at the high table is an adventure in itself. Your pointed shoes slip on the smooth stones. Your train catches on chair legs and rushes scattered on the floor. Your headdress requires you to duck carefully under the low-hanging banners that decorate the hall. By the time you reach your designated chair, you're breathing heavily through your mouth since your nose is partially blocked by antimony makeup. Sitting down for the meal requires assistance from 2 servants. Your corset makes bending impossible, so you must be carefully lowered onto your chair while your skirts are arranged around you. The weight of your outfit, now approaching 50 pounds with the addition of afternoon jewelry, means that once you're seated, getting up again will require significant help. The meal itself presents a series of nearly insurmountable challenges. Your tight sleeves restrict arm movement, making it difficult to reach for food. Your compressed waist means you can eat only tiny portions without becoming violently ill. Your painted face requires careful management to avoid cracking your makeup while chewing. Most challenging of all, your artificially positioned breasts mean you can't lean forward over your plate. The combination of tight binding and the low neckline of your dress creates a situation where any forward movement threatens to result in a very public wardrobe malfunction. Agnes stands behind your chair, ready to assist with the complex process of eating while maintaining perfect beauty. She cuts your food into pieces so small they could be fed to an infant. She holds a napkin ready to catch any crumbs that might disturb your outfit. She watches your face carefully for signs that your makeup is beginning to crack under the strain of facial movement. The other ladies at the table are engaged in the same careful ballet of restricted consumption. Everyone eats like birds, taking tiny bites and chewing with minimal jaw movement to preserve their lead paint faces. Conversation is limited because talking too much causes makeup to crack and flake off. You manage to consume perhaps a quarter of what you'd normally eat, which is all your compressed stomach can handle anyway. The constant pressure of your corset has reduced your appetite to almost nothing, which medieval physicians consider a positive side effect of proper fashion. After all, a delicate appetite is a sign of refined femininity, but the meal is just the beginning of the afternoon's challenges. After eating, you're expected to participate in various social activities that will test your ability to maintain perfect beauty while engaging in normal human interaction. The first activity is dancing, which in your current state is roughly equivalent to performing ballet while wearing a straitjacket. The dance steps themselves are simple enough, but executing them while wearing 40 pounds of clothing and shoes that extend 6 inches beyond your actual feet requires skills that most circus performers would find challenging. Your dance partner, a young lord whose own outfit is only slightly less restrictive than yours, leads you through the opening steps of a popular court dance. The movement requires you to lift your skirt slightly to avoid tripping, which must be done carefully to avoid revealing your ankles, a sight that would cause scandal in polite society. Each step must be calculated to accommodate your pointed shoes. Each turn must account for the train of your dress. Each bow must be performed without disturbing your headdress or causing your tightly bound breasts to shift position. Within minutes, you're dizzy from lack of oxygen. The combination of your corset and the physical activity of dancing means you're getting perhaps half the air you need. Your vision begins to blur slightly, and you recognize the warning signs of an impending fainting spell, a common occurrence among fashionably dressed medieval women. Fainting, however, must be done gracefully. A properly beautiful woman doesn't simply collapse. She sinks elegantly to the ground in a way that doesn't disturb her outfit or expose any inappropriate amounts of skin. You've been trained in the art of decorative fainting since childhood. Agnes, ever vigilant, recognizes the signs and discreetly positions herself to catch you if necessary. A small crowd gathers as you perform a textbook medieval swoon, sinking to the ground with your skirts arranged artfully around you and your hand pressed delicately to your forehead. The gathered nobles murmur appreciatively. A beautiful woman fainting from the strain of her beauty routine is considered highly romantic in medieval society. It demonstrates that you're so dedicated to feminine ideals that you're literally willing to sacrifice consciousness for the sake of fashion. Sir Geoffrey, your admirer from the morning, rushes to your side with a small vial of smelling salts. "My lady," he says, "your dedication to beauty is an inspiration to us all." You're helped to your feet by several solicitous courtiers, all of whom are careful not to disturb your carefully arranged outfit. The fainting spell is treated as a triumph rather than a medical emergency. You've proven that you're so committed to medieval beauty standards that you're willing to lose consciousness rather than compromise your appearance. After recovering from your decorative swoon, you're led to the next activity, embroidery. This might seem like a peaceful respite from the physical demands of dancing, but it presents its own unique challenges for a woman dressed in medieval high fashion. The embroidery frame is positioned at a height that requires you to lean forward slightly to work, but your corset makes forward movement nearly impossible. Your tight sleeves restrict the movement of your arms, making the fine motor control required for delicate needlework extremely difficult. The rings on every finger interfere with your grip on the needle and thread. Most problematically, your artificially positioned breasts mean that leaning over the embroidery frame causes significant pressure and discomfort. The tight binding that pushes them upward and inward wasn't designed to accommodate the forward lean required for close work. You spend an hour producing perhaps 6 stitches of questionable quality, while other women who aren't quite so tightly corseted complete entire sections of their work. But the quality of your embroidery isn't really the point. The point is that you're demonstrating your commitment to appropriate feminine activities while maintaining perfect beauty standards. Agnes stands beside you throughout the embroidery session, ready to assist with any aspect of the work that your restricted movement makes impossible. She holds your thread, repositions your fabric, and occasionally takes a few stitches herself when your cramped hands can't manage the fine work. This is normal. Medieval ladies of fashion often require assistance with basic tasks because their beauty routines have rendered them nearly incapable of normal function. Having servants perform the actual work while you maintain the appearance of activity is considered perfectly acceptable. The afternoon continues with a series of similar activities, each one presenting new challenges for maintaining beauty while attempting to live a normal life. Music lessons with fingers weighted down by rings. Conversation with a face so stiff from lead paint that expressions are impossible. Walking in the garden with shoes that make every step a potential disaster. By late afternoon, you're exhausted in ways that go beyond normal fatigue. The constant pressure of your corset has created a dull ache that radiates through your entire torso. Your scalp throbs from the weight of your headdress. Your feet have been numb for hours. The lead paint on your face feels like a mask that's slowly tightening, and you can taste the metallic tang of the antimony eye makeup. But the day isn't over yet. Evening will bring new challenges, new opportunities to demonstrate your commitment to beauty, and new ways for medieval fashion to test the limits of human endurance. Agnes begins the process of preparing you for the evening's activities, which will require touch-ups to your makeup, adjustments to your outfit, and the addition of even more jewelry for the formal dinner that concludes each day. As she works, you catch your reflection in a mirror and are struck by how little you resemble the person who woke up this morning. That woman had thoughts, feelings, and the ability to move freely through the world. This woman is a living artwork, a display piece, a testament to the power of medieval beauty culture to transform human beings into ornamental objects. You are beautiful. You are fashionable. You are exactly what medieval society expects a woman of your class to be. You are also slowly dying from the very standards that make you beautiful. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, you still have to survive dinner. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows through the narrow windows of the castle, you realize that your day of beauty is far from over. Evening in medieval society doesn't mean rest. It means the grand finale of your daily performance as a living embodiment of impossible beauty standards. Agnes approaches with what can only be described as evening enhancement supplies, because apparently the lead paint, mercury rouge, and antimony eye makeup that have been slowly poisoning you all day aren't quite dramatic enough for formal dinner. Evening requires additional layers of toxic beautification. First comes the evening rouge, a deeper shade of mercury-based red that's designed to show up in candlelight. Agnes applies it over your existing makeup, creating layers of poison that make your cheeks glow with what medieval poets call the flush of eternal youth, but what modern medicine would recognize as the early stages of heavy metal poisoning. Next comes additional eye darkening because the antimony you applied this morning has worn off slightly from the strain of occasionally blinking. Agnes adds fresh layers of the metallic paste, creating eyes so dramatically outlined that you look like you're wearing a mask. The fresh antimony stings your already irritated eyelids, but you've learned to ignore such minor discomforts. The piece de resistance is the evening lip treatment, a mixture of red ochre-crushed beetles and lead that creates a deep red color while simultaneously providing another dose of toxic metals to your system. Your lips, which were already numb from the morning's treatment, lose even more sensation as the evening mixture is applied. Agnes steps back to admire her work, and you catch sight of yourself in the mirror. Your face now glows with an otherworldly pallor that makes you look like you've been carved from marble and painted by an artist with very disturbing tastes. You are beautiful in the way that a funeral mask is beautiful, striking artificial and somehow unsettling. But the evening enhancement doesn't stop with your face. Agnes produces what appears to be a small torture device, but is actually an evening corset. Yes, you've been wearing a corset all day, but evening requires an even tighter one, designed to create an impossibly narrow silhouette for formal dinner. The process of removing your day corset and replacing it with the evening version requires careful choreography. Agnes must unlace the old corset while simultaneously supporting you with pillows and props, since your body has forgotten how to maintain its natural shape after hours of artificial support. The moment the day corset is removed, you experience a rush of sensation as blood returns to areas that have been compressed for hours. The relief is intense but brief because the evening corset is even more restrictive than its predecessor. This new instrument of torture is made from steel rather than whalebone, designed to compress your waist to dimensions that would challenge the laws of physics. Agnes begins the lacing process with the determination of a siege engineer, pulling each lace tighter than the last until your waist measures barely 14 inches around. The steel stays pressed into your ribs with such force that you can feel individual pressure points where the metal meets your bones. Breathing becomes a conscious effort that requires careful timing and shallow inhalations. Your vision begins to blur slightly from lack of oxygen, but this is considered a positive sign. It means the corset is properly fitted. Over the steel corset goes an entirely new outfit for evening, a gown that makes your daytime dress look practically simple by comparison. The evening gown is made from cloth of silver, a fabric woven with real silver thread that catches and reflects the candlelight with every breath. The gown's bodice is cut so low that it barely covers the binding around your artificially positioned breasts. The sleeves are so tight that Agnes must lace them individually onto your arms, creating fabric sheaths that make arm movement nearly impossible. The skirt is so wide that you'll need assistance to navigate doorways, and so long that it pools around your feet in carefully arranged folds. But even this extraordinary gown isn't enough for evening. Over it goes additional layers. An overgown made from ermine fur that adds another 10 pounds to your ensemble. A mantle of cloth of gold that drapes from your shoulders to the floor, and a chain of office that signifies your rank in the complex hierarchy of medieval nobility. By the time Agnes finishes dressing you for evening, you're wearing approximately 60 pounds of clothing and jewelry. You cannot bend, turn, or move freely. Your breathing is severely restricted. Your circulation is compromised. You can barely see through the layers of toxic makeup. But you look exactly like a medieval illuminated manuscript's depiction of the ideal woman, pale as death, silent as a statue, and dressed like a walking treasury. The formal dinner is held in the castle's great hall, which has been transformed for the evening into a spectacle of medieval wealth and power. Hundreds of candles cast flickering light over tapestries that cost more than most kingdoms' annual budgets. The tables are laid with gold plates, silver goblets, and linens so fine they're nearly transparent. Your entrance is carefully choreographed. You don't simply walk into the hall, you process moving at a pace so slow it's barely perceptible while servants clear the way ahead of you and arrange your train behind you. Each step must be calculated to accommodate your pointed shoes, your impossibly tight corset, and the 60 pounds of fabric you're wearing. The assembled nobles watch your entrance with the attention usually reserved for religious ceremonies. This is in many ways exactly what it is, a ritual demonstration of your family's wealth, your own dedication to beauty, and society's commitment to standards that prioritize appearance over human comfort. You're seated at the high table in a chair that's been specially modified to accommodate your dress. The process of sitting requires 3 servants and careful management of your skirt's train and the various chains and ornaments that hang from your outfit. Once seated, you discover that eating in your evening outfit presents even greater challenges than the afternoon meal. The combination of your steel corset and the low neckline of your gown means that any forward movement risks both wardrobe malfunction and physical injury from the corset's stays. Agnes stands behind your chair with an array of tools designed to help you navigate the meal without disturbing your outfit. She cuts your food into pieces suitable for an infant, holds your goblet so you can sip without leaning forward, and carefully manages your sleeves to prevent them from touching your plate. You manage to consume perhaps a tablespoon of soup and a few sips of wine before your compressed stomach signals that it can't accommodate any more food. This is normal. Medieval ladies of fashion are expected to eat like decorative birds, consuming just enough to maintain life while demonstrating their delicate, otherworldly nature. The conversation at dinner revolves around topics considered appropriate for beautiful women, the weather, religious festivals, and detailed comparisons of various beauty treatments. Political discussions are discouraged as they might cause you to become animated and disturb your carefully applied makeup. Lady Eleanor says the woman seated beside you, your complexion tonight is absolutely divine. What's your secret? Daily bloodletting and a new lead paint formula. You reply, your voice slightly muffled by the stiffness of your makeup. Though I'm considering switching to a mixture that contains more mercury. Lady Margaret achieves such a lovely translucent quality. This is considered normal dinner conversation. Medieval women discuss their beauty routines with the same enthusiasm that modern women might discuss careers or hobbies. The slow poisoning required to achieve perfect beauty is treated as a shared interest rather than a public health crisis. Sir Geoffrey, seated across from you, joins the conversation with the authority of someone who considers himself an expert on feminine beauty. I believe the key to true beauty is suffering, he declares. A woman who hasn't endured pain for the sake of appearance can never achieve real elegance. The table murmurs agreement. This philosophy that beauty requires suffering, and that the suffering somehow enhances the beauty, is central to medieval thinking about women. The more pain you're willing to endure for the sake of appearance, the more beautiful you're considered to be. I couldn't agree more, you reply, though speaking requires careful management of your lead-painted lips. I've recently increased my bloodletting to daily sessions, and the improvement in my complexion has been remarkable. This declaration is met with impressed nods around the table. Increasing your beauty routine to potentially dangerous levels is seen as admirable dedication rather than concerning behavior. The dinner continues for several hours, during which you manage to consume roughly enough food to sustain a small bird while engaging in conversations about the best techniques for achieving life-threatening beauty standards. By the time the meal ends, you're dizzy from lack of food and oxygen exhausted from the weight of your outfit and beginning to feel the cumulative effects of a day's worth of toxic makeup. But the evening isn't over yet. After dinner comes dancing, which in your current state presents challenges that would defeat most professional athletes. The Great Hall is cleared for dancing, and you're expected to participate despite wearing an outfit that makes normal movement nearly impossible. Your dance partner, another young nobleman whose own outfit restricts his movement almost as much as yours, leads you through the steps of a courtly dance that requires grace timing and the ability to move without disturbing your carefully arranged appearance. Each step must accommodate your pointed shoes, which extend so far beyond your actual feet that you can't see where you're stepping. Each turn must account for your train, which threatens to trip both you and your partner. Each bow must be performed without disturbing your headdress or causing your tightly bound breasts to shift position. The dance steps themselves are simple, but executing them while wearing 60 pounds of clothing and shoes that bear no relationship to human anatomy requires concentration that would challenge a chess master. You're essentially performing choreography while wearing a costume designed by someone who had never seen a human being move. Within minutes, you're breathing heavily through your mouth since your nose is still partially blocked by antimony makeup. The steel corset restricts your breathing so severely that you're getting perhaps a third of the oxygen you need. Your vision begins to blur, and you recognize the familiar signs of impending unconsciousness. But fainting during the evening dance is considered the height of romantic beauty. It demonstrates that you're so dedicated to feminine ideals that you're willing to sacrifice consciousness rather than compromise your appearance. The assembled nobles watch expectantly, waiting for the dramatic moment when you'll collapse gracefully into your partner's arms. Agnes, ever prepared, positions herself nearby with smelling salts and a small chair. When you finally succumb to oxygen deprivation and sink elegantly to the floor, it's treated as the evening's entertainment rather than a medical emergency. Sir Geoffrey rushes to your side with romantic concern. "My lady," he declares, "your dedication to beauty is an inspiration to us all. To think that you would risk your very consciousness for the sake of elegance." You're revived with smelling salts and helped to a chair where you sit in a decorative stupor while the other guests discuss your fainting spell as if it were a particularly impressive piece of performance art. In medieval society, a woman's willingness to endure physical suffering for the sake of beauty is considered her greatest virtue. The evening finally draws to a close, and you're carefully transported back to your chambers by a team of servants who have experience moving unconscious or semi-conscious ladies of fashion. The process of getting you from the Great Hall to your bedroom requires the same level of planning and coordination as moving a piece of valuable artwork. Once in your chambers, Agnes begins the lengthy process of disassembling your evening ensemble. Each layer must be carefully removed to avoid damaging the expensive fabrics. Each piece of jewelry must be cleaned and stored properly. The toxic makeup must be removed with special solvents that are only slightly less dangerous than the cosmetics themselves. By the time Agnes finishes preparing you for sleep, it's well past midnight. You've spent nearly 18 hours in the pursuit of perfect beauty, and the results are both stunning and terrifying. You look exactly like a medieval illuminated manuscript's vision of feminine perfection, assuming that vision includes slow poisoning and gradual suffocation. As you finally lie down in your bed, still wearing a sleeping corset, because apparently even unconsciousness doesn't exempt you from beauty standards, you reflect on the day's achievements. You've successfully demonstrated your family's wealth, your own dedication to feminine ideals, and your willingness to endure significant suffering for the sake of social approval. You've also been systematically poisoned by lead mercury and antimony. Your internal organs have been compressed into unnatural positions. Your natural appearance has been completely obliterated by toxic cosmetics and restrictive clothing. But you are beautiful. By medieval standards, you are the pinnacle of feminine achievement, pale as death, silent as a statue, and dressed like a walking treasury. tomorrow you'll wake up and do it all again. Because in medieval Europe, beauty isn't something you achieve, it's something you suffer for day after day until either society's standards change or the suffering kills you. And given the choice between changing beauty standards and maintaining them at any cost, medieval society has made its preference perfectly clear. As you lie in your bed, still corseted and painted even in sleep, your mind drifts to the knowledge that you carry but rarely speak aloud, the understanding of exactly what these beauty rituals are doing to your body and why society considers this an acceptable price for feminine perfection. You've been educated, unlike many women of your time, and you understand more than you're supposed to about the substances that Agnes applies to your face each morning. The lead paint that creates your perfect pale complexion doesn't just sit on the surface of your skin, it absorbs through your pores and enters your bloodstream, where it begins a slow but steady process of poisoning every organ in your body. You know that lead accumulates in bones, replacing calcium and making them brittle. You know that it affects the brain, causing what physicians politely call melancholy, but what you recognize as lead-induced depression and cognitive decline. You know that it damages the kidneys, the liver, and the reproductive system, making pregnancy more dangerous and infant mortality more likely. What you don't know is why this knowledge seems to make so little difference to anyone, including yourself. The pursuit of beauty has become so central to feminine identity that women willingly poison themselves rather than appear in public without their lead white faces. The mercury in your rouge presents similar problems. Unlike lead, which acts slowly, mercury attacks the nervous system more directly. You've noticed that your hands shake slightly on days when Agnes applies extra rouge for special occasions. You've observed that some of the older court ladies have developed a characteristic tremor that makes eating and drinking challenging. You've watched women lose their hair, their teeth, and eventually their minds to mercury poisoning. But admitting that beauty treatments are dangerous would require questioning the entire foundation of medieval feminine identity. If women can't pursue beauty at any cost, what exactly is their purpose in society? If feminine suffering isn't beautiful, what is? These are dangerous thoughts that you keep to yourself. Women who question beauty standards too openly risk being labeled as unnatural, rebellious, or worse. The church teaches that feminine beauty is a divine gift that must be cultivated and displayed for the glory of God. Physicians argue that women's natural appearance is fundamentally flawed and requires correction through cosmetic treatments. Society has created a system where women must choose between being beautiful and being healthy, and then act surprised when they choose beauty every time. The antimony around your eyes is perhaps the cruelest irony of all. This metallic substance, prized for its ability to create dark, mysterious eyes, gradually destroys vision. You've noticed that your eyesight isn't as sharp as it once was, particularly in dim light. Some of the older court ladies are essentially blind, though they continue to apply antimony daily because the alternative, appearing in public without proper eye makeup, is socially impossible. The practice of bloodletting adds another layer of systematic weakening to the beauty routine. Medieval physicians believe that women's blood runs too hot and vigorous for proper feminine delicacy, so regular bleeding is prescribed to create the pale, weak appearance that men find attractive. What this actually does is create chronic anemia. The constant loss of blood leaves women perpetually tired, mentally foggy, and physically weak. But these symptoms are interpreted as signs of proper feminine refinement rather than medical problems requiring treatment. You've calculated that between the daily bloodletting and the severely restricted diet required to maintain your corseted silhouette, you're operating on roughly half the nutrition and blood volume that your body needs to function properly. This explains the constant fatigue, the frequent fainting spells, and the feeling that you're viewing the world through a thin veil of exhaustion. But admitting that you're starving and anemic would require acknowledging that medieval beauty standards are systematically weakening women's bodies. And if women are weak because of beauty treatments rather than natural feminine delicacy, then perhaps they're not naturally inferior to men after all. This is the thought that keeps you awake despite your exhaustion, the realization that every aspect of your beauty routine is designed not just to make you attractive, but to make you dependent, weak, and unable to function without constant assistance. Your corset doesn't just create an attractive silhouette, it makes normal movement impossible, ensuring that you need help with basic tasks. Your pointed shoes don't just look elegant, they make walking difficult and running impossible. Your layers of toxic makeup don't just create beautiful features, they poison you slowly while making facial expressions nearly impossible. Medieval beauty standards aren't just aesthetic preferences, they're a systematic method of disabling women, making them beautiful and helpless in equal measure. The most disturbing realization is that this system is maintained not just by men who benefit from weak, dependent women, but by the women themselves. Your mother introduced you to lead paint when you were 12. Other women critique your appearance if you're not poisoned enough. Society ladies compete to see who can achieve the most extreme and dangerous beauty standards. Women are not just victims of this system, they're its most enthusiastic enforcers. You think about the young girls in your household, daughters of servants and minor nobles, who watch your daily beauty routine with fascination and longing. They see you as the pinnacle of feminine achievement, someone who has mastered the art of being beautiful at any cost. They don't see the lead poisoning, the mercury tremors, the gradual blindness from antimony, the chronic anemia from bloodletting, or the organ displacement from tight corseting. They see only the end result, a woman who embodies society's ideal of feminine beauty. And in a few years, they'll begin their own journey down the same path, applying their first layers of lead paint and learning to ignore the early signs of poisoning in pursuit of the same impossible standards. The cycle continues because questioning it would require admitting that everything medieval society believes about feminine beauty, feminine nature, and feminine purpose might be fundamentally wrong. And that's a conversation that no one, not the men who benefit from it, not the church that sanctifies it, not even the women who suffer from it, is prepared to have. As sleep finally begins to take you, your last conscious thought is a question that you'll never dare speak aloud. What would happen if women simply stopped? What if they refused the lead paint, abandoned the mercury rouge, threw away the antimony eye makeup, and appeared in public with their natural faces? What if they unlaced their corsets, put on comfortable shoes, and moved through the world without carrying 60 pounds of decorative suffering? The answer you suspect is that they would discover they were never as weak, as delicate, or as naturally inferior as society told them they were. But that discovery would change everything, and medieval society isn't ready for that kind of change. So tomorrow you'll wake up and begin the process all over again. Agnes will apply fresh layers of poison to your face, lace you into instruments of torture, and help you transform from a human being into a living work of art that slowly kills its creator. Because in medieval Europe, that's what it means to be a beautiful woman. And beauty, as everyone knows, is worth any price, even if that price is your life. You wake before dawn, not from rest, but from the constant dull pain that has become your faithful companion. Your ribs ache where the sleeping corset pressed against them all night. Your scalp throbs from the weight of yesterday's headdress. Your face feels tight and strange, as if it belongs to someone else, which in a way it does. But this morning brings a special horror the monthly visit from Master Henri, the court's premier beauty consultant. He's a man who has made his fortune by convincing women that their natural appearance is so fundamentally flawed that only increasingly expensive and dangerous treatments can make them acceptable to society. Master Henri arrives with his assistants carrying wooden chests filled with the latest innovations in feminine torture. Today's agenda includes a consultation on the newest trends in beauty modification, an evaluation of your current routine's effectiveness, and the introduction of several new products that promise to make you even more beautiful while accelerating the process of slowly killing you. My Lady Henri announces with the confidence of someone who has never had to wear the products he sells, I bring revolutionary advances in the pursuit of perfect femininity. He opens his first chest with the flourish of a magician, revealing rows of small glass vials containing substances that shimmer with an otherworldly light. These, he declares, contain powdered pearls mixed with quicksilver. Applied nightly to the face, they create a luminescence that surpasses even the finest lead paint. Agnes examines the vials with professional interest, while you try not to think about what quicksilver liquid mercury might do to your skin when applied directly. The answer you suspect is nothing good, but Henri's reputation for creating the most fashionable beauty treatments in Europe precedes him. The effect Henri continues is that of moonlight captured in human form. Lady Isabel at the French court has been using this treatment for 6 months, and she now glows with such ethereal beauty that some say she appears to be lit from within. What Henri doesn't mention is that Lady Isabel has also developed a tremor so severe that she can no longer feed herself, and her hair has fallen out in patches that require increasingly elaborate wigs to conceal. But these are minor side effects compared to achieving the perfect lunar pallor that's currently fashionable. Henri moves to his second chest, which contains what appears to be a selection of medieval medical instruments, but are actually the latest in beauty enhancement tools. These, he explains, are for the newest trend in forehead modification. The high forehead achieved through plucking is apparently no longer dramatic enough. The latest fashion requires actually reshaping the skull through a process that Henri describes as gentle cranial adjustment, but which looks suspiciously like medieval torture. We use these specialized tools. Henri continues, holding up what appears to be a metal framework designed to fit around a woman's head to gradually elongate the forehead beyond what simple hair removal can achieve. The device is worn nightly for several months, applying gentle pressure to reshape the skull itself. The device looks like something that would be used in a dungeon, but Henri presents it as the height of fashionable innovation. Several noble ladies at other courts have already begun this treatment, he assures you, and the results are apparently spectacular, assuming you survive the process of having your skull gradually deformed. And here, Henri says, opening his third chest, we have the latest advancement in waist modification. Inside the chest is what can only be described as a corset made from metal plates rather than whalebone. It's less clothing than it is armor, designed to compress the human torso into geometrically impossible proportions. This creates a waist measurement that approaches the theoretical ideal, Henri explains. 12 inches around, which our philosophers believe represents the perfect mathematical relationship between a woman's waist and her ability to bear children. The fact that a 12-inch waist would make childbearing not just difficult, but potentially fatal, is apparently irrelevant. Medieval beauty culture has reached the point where the pursuit of perfect proportions takes precedence over basic biological function. Henri demonstrates how the metal corset works, and the process looks like something that should require a team of engineers. Multiple locking mechanisms, screw-based tightening systems, and metal stays that would prevent any possibility of normal movement. Once locked into this device, you would be essentially immobilized until someone with the proper tools could free you. The beauty of this design. Henri continues with enthusiasm that borders on the evangelical is that it makes cheating impossible. With traditional corsets, women sometimes loosen them when they think no one is looking. This prevents such lapses in dedication. The idea that wanting to breathe occasionally represents a moral failure is apparently central to Henri's philosophy of beauty. Women who prioritize their physical comfort over their appearance are clearly lacking in proper feminine virtue. Henri's final chest contains what he calls the ultimate expression of medieval beauty science, a collection of treatments that combine all the most dangerous elements of current fashion into a single comprehensive routine. This is my masterwork. He announces a complete beauty system that addresses every aspect of feminine imperfection. The system includes a new formulation of face paint that contains not just lead but also arsenic for what Henri claims is a more luminous effect. A hair treatment that combines the traditional urine and pigeon dung with powdered mercury for faster bleaching results. An eye makeup that adds crushed glass to the antimony, supposedly to create a more sparkling appearance. Each element of Henri's system is more dangerous than what you're currently using, but that's precisely the point. In medieval beauty culture, the level of risk you're willing to accept for the sake of appearance directly correlates with your dedication to feminine ideals. Women who use only mildly toxic beauty treatments are considered somewhat fashionable. Women who use highly toxic treatments are considered truly devoted to beauty. And women who use treatments that might actually kill them, they're considered the ultimate expression of feminine perfection. Henri's consultation continues for hours, during which he evaluates every aspect of your current appearance and finds each one inadequately dangerous. Your lead paint could be more toxic. Your corset could be tighter. Your bloodletting schedule could be more frequent. Your diet could be more restrictive. The underlying message is clear: you're not suffering enough for beauty. A truly fashionable woman should be on the verge of death from her beauty routine, because only when you're willing to risk everything for appearance do you demonstrate proper feminine devotion. Consider this, Henri says, as his consultation nears its end: the pursuit of beauty is the highest calling available to women. Men may conquer kingdoms, build cathedrals, or write great works of philosophy, but women have the opportunity to transform themselves into living works of art, to become embodiments of divine beauty that inspire and elevate all who see them. This is the philosophy that justifies the entire medieval beauty industry. Women are told that their primary purpose is to be beautiful, and that any sacrifice, health, comfort, sanity, even life itself, is justified in service of that goal. The fact that this divine beauty requires increasingly toxic and dangerous treatments is presented not as a flaw in the system, but as proof of its spiritual significance. The more you suffer for beauty, the more beautiful you become. The more dangerous your treatments, the more devoted to feminine ideals you demonstrate yourself to be. Henri concludes his visit by presenting you with a bill that would bankrupt most kingdoms. The cost of his new treatments represents more wealth than most people will see in their entire lifetimes, but this is also part of the point. Medieval beauty isn't just about suffering, it's about expensive suffering. Only women from the wealthiest families can afford the most dangerous beauty treatments, which means that extreme beauty becomes a way of displaying not just feminine virtue, but also economic power. A woman who can afford to poison herself with the finest toxic cosmetics is demonstrating her family's wealth while simultaneously proving her own dedication to feminine ideals. As Henri departs with his chests of beautiful death, you're left to contemplate the choices before you. You could continue with your current routine, which is slowly killing you at a manageable pace. Or you could embrace Henri's innovations, which would make you more beautiful while accelerating the timeline of your demise. The decision, Henri assures you, is entirely yours. Medieval society is all about women's freedom to choose exactly how they want to destroy themselves for the sake of beauty. You have agency, autonomy, and control over your own fate. As long as you use that agency to make yourself more beautiful, that autonomy to become more appealing to men, and that control to ensure that you never deviate from society's expectations of feminine perfection. Freedom, medieval style. You can choose any path you want as long as it leads to the same destination. Later that morning, you attend what is euphemistically called a beauty gathering, a weekly meeting of the court's most fashionable ladies, where the real purpose is to ensure that no one is falling behind in the competitive pursuit of life-threatening beauty standards. The gathering takes place in Lady Marguerite's Solar, a room that has been transformed into something between a medical facility and a torture chamber. Mirrors line the walls, reflecting the assembled women in an endless parade of artificially pale faces and impossibly narrow waists. The air is thick with the metallic scent of lead paint, the sharp tang of mercury compounds, and the underlying smell of slow decay that seems to follow groups of heavily made-up medieval women. You arrive to find 12 other ladies already assembled, each one a masterpiece of medieval beauty modification. They sit in specially designed chairs that accommodate their corseted torsos and massive skirts looking like a collection of beautiful dolls that someone has positioned for display. Lady Marguerite herself is the acknowledged leader of this group, a woman who has achieved such dedication to beauty standards that she's barely recognizable as human anymore. Her face is painted white with a lead mixture so thick that it's created a mask-like quality that never changes expression. Her waist, corseted since childhood, now measures an impossible 11 inches around. Her hair, bleached beyond recognition, is supplemented with hair pieces made from the locks of dead peasant women. She's also, you notice, visibly trembling from what you recognize as mercury poisoning, and her eyes have the cloudy quality that comes from years of antimony use. She's beautiful in the way that a piece of elaborate architecture is beautiful, impressive, artificial, and somehow frightening. Ladies, Marguerite begins, her voice slightly slurred from the lead paint that has affected her nervous system. We must discuss the standards that separate us from the common women who lack our dedication to true beauty. The conversation that follows is unlike anything that would happen in any other context. These women discuss their beauty routines with the same clinical detail that physicians might use to describe surgical procedures, except they're describing the various ways they're slowly killing themselves in pursuit of feminine perfection. I've increased my bloodletting to twice daily ounces. Lady Catherine, a young woman whose complexion has achieved the translucent quality that comes from severe anemia. The effect on my pallor has been remarkable, though I must admit the fainting spells have become more frequent. The group murmurs appreciatively. Fainting spells are considered a mark of proper feminine delicacy, proof that you're so committed to beauty that you're willing to render yourself unconscious rather than compromise your appearance. I've begun using Henri's new face paint formula, adds Lady Beatrice, whose skin has taken on an otherworldly glow that you now realize comes from the arsenic content. The luminescence is extraordinary, though I've noticed some hair loss and occasional seizures. Again, appreciative murmurs. Hair loss can be disguised with wigs, and seizures, properly managed, can actually enhance the appearance of feminine fragility that's so fashionable. The conversation continues in this vein, with each woman sharing the latest innovations in self-destruction that she's discovered. New corset designs that promise even tighter waistlines. Experimental eye makeup that includes powdered gemstones for a more sparkling effect. Bleeding schedules that push the boundaries of what the human body can survive. What strikes you most about this gathering is how supportive and encouraging the women are toward each other's pursuit of increasingly dangerous beauty standards. They're not competing in the traditional sense. They're collaborating in a group project to see how far human beauty modification can be pushed before it becomes literally fatal. Now, Lady Marguerite announces we must address the concerning rumors about Lady Anne, a collective intake of breath from the assembled women. Lady Anne, who is not present today, has apparently committed the ultimate sin in medieval beauty culture. She's been seen in public without full makeup. My maid spoke with her maid, continues Marguerite, and it seems that Anne has stopped using lead paint entirely. She claims it was making her ill. The shock in the room is palpable. A noble woman abandoning lead paint is roughly equivalent to a knight throwing away his sword. It's a rejection of everything that defines her social identity. Worse, Marguerite continues, she's been seen wearing a corset that actually allows her to breathe normally. And yesterday, someone spotted her walking in the garden in shoes that appear to be designed for actual walking rather than display. The assembled women exchange horrified glances. Lady Anne has apparently decided that her health and comfort are more important than conforming to beauty standards, and this represents a threat to the entire system that gives their lives meaning. We must stage an intervention, declares Lady Catherine. We cannot allow one of our members to fall into such naturalism. The plan they develop is both supportive and sinister. They'll visit Lady Anne as a group, bringing gifts of the finest toxic cosmetics and the latest in restrictive undergarments. They'll remind her of her duties as a noble woman to maintain proper standards of beauty. They'll explain that her rejection of beauty culture is not just a personal choice, but a betrayal of everything that makes women valuable in medieval society. Most importantly, they'll make it clear that abandoning beauty standards means abandoning their social circle. A woman who won't poison herself for the sake of appearance has no place among women who will. The intervention is scheduled for the following day, and you're expected to participate. The prospect fills you with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Part of you wants to see what Lady Anne looks like when she's not painted with lead and compressed into an impossible silhouette. Part of you is terrified that seeing her natural appearance might make you question your own commitment to beautiful suffering. As the beauty gathering continues, the conversation turns to the younger generation, the daughters and nieces, who will soon begin their own journey into the world of medieval beauty culture. The women discuss these girls with the enthusiasm of coaches planning training regimens for promising athletes. My niece Eleanor turns 12 next month, says Lady Beatrice. I've already arranged for her first bloodletting and ordered her first set of real corsets. She's so excited to begin proper beauty treatments. The women nod approvingly. Starting beauty modification early is crucial for achieving the most extreme results. A girl who begins corseting at 12 will achieve a much smaller waist than one who starts later. Early exposure to lead paint allows the skin to gradually adapt to higher concentrations of poison. I've been working with my daughter on her pain tolerance, adds Lady Catherine. Beauty requires suffering, and girls must learn to endure discomfort for the sake of appearance. I've been gradually increasing the tightness of her practice corsets. This, too, is met with approval. Training young girls to accept increasing levels of physical discomfort is considered an essential part of their education. They must learn that their natural bodies are flawed and that achieving beauty requires constant correction through uncomfortable, dangerous, and expensive treatments. The beauty gathering concludes with a group examination of each woman's current appearance, during which they offer suggestions for improvement. Your lead paint could be whiter, your waist could be smaller, your bloodletting schedule could be more frequent. Every suggestion involves increasing the level of risk, discomfort, or expense involved in your beauty routine. The goal is not to help you look better in any objective sense. It's to help you demonstrate greater dedication to the pursuit of beauty, regardless of the consequences. As you prepare to leave, Lady Marguerite takes you aside for a private conversation. My dear, she says, her mercury trembling hands gripping your arm, I wanted to speak with you about your future in our circle. The conversation that follows makes it clear that your current level of beauty modification, while admirable, is not sufficient for long-term membership in this group. To remain part of the court's most fashionable ladies, you'll need to embrace increasingly extreme measures. Consider Henri's new treatments, Marguerite suggests. Yes, they're dangerous, but that's exactly what makes them so fashionable. Any peasant can avoid poisoning herself, but it takes a true lady to embrace beautiful toxicity. The message is clear: escalate or be excluded. Medieval beauty culture doesn't allow for moderation or safety. You're either moving toward greater extremes of artificial beauty, or you're falling behind and will eventually be cast out of fashionable society. As you leave the beauty gathering, you realize that you've just witnessed something that no historian will ever record: the daily mechanics of how medieval women collaborated in their own systematic destruction. These weren't victims of male oppression or religious fanaticism. They were willing participants in a culture that valued feminine beauty above feminine life. They enforced these standards not just on themselves, but on each other, ensuring that no woman could escape the cycle of beautiful suffering without losing her place in society entirely. The most disturbing realization is that this system works precisely because it's maintained by women who genuinely believe that what they're doing is valuable, meaningful, and worthy of the sacrifices it requires. They're not being forced into this lifestyle. They're choosing it, defending it, and passing it on to the next generation with pride. And tomorrow, you'll have to decide whether you're willing to continue being part of it. That evening, alone in your chambers with only Agnes for company, you do something that you haven't done in years. You ask to see yourself without any beauty enhancement whatsoever. Agnes looks at you as if you've requested something scandalous, which in medieval terms you have. A noblewoman viewing her natural appearance is considered both vain and dangerous vain because it suggests you're not satisfied with the work of professional beauty consultants, and dangerous because it might give you ideas about abandoning the beauty modifications that define your social status. My Lady Agnes says carefully, "Are you quite certain it's been so long since—" "Please," you say, and something in your voice convinces her to begin the lengthy process of removing every trace of your artificial beauty. First comes the makeup removal, which requires special solvents to dissolve the layers of lead paint, mercury rouge, and antimony eye makeup that have been applied and reapplied for so many months that they've essentially become a second skin. The solvents themselves are harsh and caustic, burning your skin as they work to remove the toxic cosmetics beneath. As Agnes works, you catch glimpses of skin that you haven't seen in years. It's damaged, scarred from the constant application of corrosive substances and marked with the telltale signs of heavy metal poisoning. Your natural color, when it finally emerges, is sickly and uneven, mottled with patches where the lead paint has killed the underlying tissue. Next comes the removal of your corseting, a process that requires careful timing and support because your body has forgotten how to maintain its natural posture. As Agnes unlaces layer after layer of restriction, you feel sensations returning to parts of your body that have been numb for so long you'd forgotten they existed. Your waist, freed from its daily imprisonment, slowly expands to something approaching its natural size. Your ribs, no longer compressed, allow your lungs to fully inflate for the first time in months. Your internal organs, given permission to return to their intended positions, create sensations that are both relief and discomfort as your body remembers how it's supposed to function. The removal of your various paddings and enhancements reveals a body that bears little resemblance to the silhouette you present to the world. Your breasts, no longer bound and positioned artificially, return to their natural shape and location. Your hips, stripped of their padding, resume their actual proportions. Finally, Agnes helps you remove the hairpieces, extensions, and ornaments that have transformed your natural hair into an elaborate architectural display. What remains is damaged, brittle, and thin from years of chemical treatments, but it's yours. When the transformation is complete, Agnes brings you a mirror, and you stare at a reflection that is both familiar and shocking. The woman looking back at you is recognizably you, but she's also a stranger, someone you haven't seen in so long that you'd almost forgotten she existed. Your face, without its mask of lead paint, shows your actual age and the damage that years of beauty treatments have caused. Your skin is prematurely aged, marked with lines and discolorations that speak to the toxic substances you've been applying daily. Your eyes, without their antimony darkening, appear smaller and show signs of the vision problems that come from years of metallic eye makeup. Your body, freed from its artificial constraints, reveals the physical cost of medieval beauty standards. You're thinner than you should be, weakened by chronic bloodletting and dietary restrictions. Your posture is permanently affected by years of corseting. Your hands shake slightly from mercury exposure, but you're also undeniably human in a way that your artificially enhanced appearance never was. The woman in the mirror can move freely, breathe deeply, and express emotions without worrying about cracking her makeup. She looks tired and damaged, but she also looks alive in a way that your beautiful painted face never did. Agnes watches your examination with the careful attention of someone who has seen many noble women confront their natural appearance for the first time in years. "My lady," she says gently, "would you like me to begin reapplying your cosmetics?" The question hangs in the air like an invitation to return to a familiar prison. You could say yes, and within hours, you would once again be the perfect medieval beauty that society expects. The pale, silent, artificially enhanced woman who embodies everything that medieval culture values in femininity. Or you could say no and face the consequences of appearing in public as yourself, damaged, tired, but human. "Not yet," you hear yourself saying, and Agnes nods as if she expected this answer. You spend the next hour simply existing in your natural state, relearning what it feels like to inhabit your own body without artificial modification. You can bend at the waist, turn your head freely, take deep breaths. You can speak without worrying about cracking your makeup, eat without restricting yourself to tiny portions, move without calculating each step to accommodate pointed shoes and trailing skirts. It's a revelation and a tragedy rolled into one. This is what you gave up for beauty, the simple ability to exist comfortably in your own skin. This is what medieval society considers so fundamentally flawed that it must be hidden under layers of toxic paint and restrictive clothing. But it's also what Lady Anne chose when she abandoned her beauty routine. This damaged but real version of yourself is what she decided was worth more than social acceptance, fashionable approval, and the admiration of men who prefer their women beautiful and slowly dying. As you prepare for bed that night, still in your natural state, breathing freely for the first time in months, you reflect on the choice that every medieval woman faces daily. You can be beautiful according to society's standards, which means being slowly poisoned, physically restricted, and gradually transformed into an ornamental object that bears little resemblance to your natural self. Or you can be human, which means accepting social rejection, losing your place in fashionable society, and facing a world that considers your natural appearance so fundamentally flawed that hiding it becomes a moral imperative. Tomorrow, you'll have to choose again. Agnes will arrive with her paints and powders, her corsets and bindings, her tools for transforming you from a damaged but breathing human being into a perfect, slowly dying work of art. And you'll have to decide, as medieval women decide every day, whether beauty is worth the price that society demands for it. The most terrifying realization is that after years of this routine, you're not entirely sure you remember how to exist in the world without your artificial enhancements. Your social identity, your self-worth, your very understanding of who you are has become so intertwined with your artificial appearance that abandoning it feels like abandoning yourself. Medieval beauty culture doesn't just change how you look, it changes who you are until the artificial version becomes more real to you than your natural self. And that perhaps is the most effective prison of all, one where the captive can't imagine wanting to escape. You wake the next morning to find Agnes standing by your bed with her usual array of beauty supplies, but her expression suggests she knows that today is different. The woman who went to sleep last night, natural unpainted breathing freely, is not the same woman who has been waking up to this routine for years. My Lady Agnes says carefully, "Shall I prepare your usual morning treatments?" The question carries weight beyond its simple words. She's asking whether you're ready to return to the familiar cycle of beautiful self-destruction, or whether last night's glimpse of your natural self has changed something fundamental about your relationship with medieval beauty culture. You sit up slowly, noticing how different it feels to move without the constraints of sleeping corsets and overnight beauty treatments. Your skin feels strange, exposed, and vulnerable after years of being covered in lead paint. Your body feels foreign, but somehow more authentic, like a piece of clothing that fits properly after years of wearing the wrong size. Through your window, you can see the castle courtyard beginning to stir with morning activity. Soon the other ladies of the court will emerge in their daily costumes of artificial beauty, painted and corseted, and transformed into the perfect medieval vision of femininity. They'll glide through the day in their careful, restricted movements, breathing shallowly, eating sparingly, and slowly poisoning themselves in pursuit of an ideal that exists only in men's imaginations and illuminated manuscripts. And they'll be beautiful. There's no denying that medieval beauty treatments, for all their dangers, create a stunning visual effect. The pale, ethereal, otherworldly appearance that results from lead paint and strategic bloodletting does produce the kind of beauty that stops conversations and inspires poetry. But you now understand, in a way you never did before, exactly what that beauty costs. Agnes, you say, finally, I'd like you to prepare a simple dress, nothing corseted, nothing that requires assistance to put on or take off, and no makeup. Agnes nods, but you can see the concern in her eyes. My lady, the other ladies. They'll notice. And if you're planning to attend Lady Anne's intervention this afternoon, the intervention. You'd forgotten about the planned group visit to convince Lady Anne to return to proper beauty standards. The gathering of medieval society's most fashionable women descending en masse to pressure a woman who has chosen her health over her appearance. The irony isn't lost on you that you're supposed to participate in convincing another woman to resume slowly poisoning herself on the same day that you're questioning whether you want to continue the process yourself. I think you say slowly that I need to see Lady Anne before the others arrive. Agnes helps you into a simple linen dress, something that would have been scandalously plain by yesterday's standards, but which today feels like freedom itself. The dress allows you to move normally, breathe deeply, and exist in your body without constant awareness of artificial constraints. Your reflection in the mirror shows a woman who looks tired and somewhat sickly, marked by years of beauty treatments that have taken their toll. But she also looks real in a way that your painted, corseted self never did. She looks like someone who could run if necessary, laugh without cracking her makeup, or eat a full meal without becoming violently ill. The walk to Lady Anne's chambers feels different without the weight of elaborate clothing and the restriction of pointed shoes. You move more quickly, more naturally, more like a human being and less like a carefully positioned ornament. When you arrive at Anne's door, you hesitate for a moment before knocking. You're about to see what a medieval noblewoman looks like when she's abandoned the beauty standards that define her social class. Part of you is curious, part of you is terrified, and part of you is hoping that what you see will help you understand your own choices. Anne opens the door herself, another sign of how far she's fallen from fashionable society since proper ladies don't answer their own doors. But the woman who greets you is shocking in the most unexpected way. She looks healthy. Anne's face, free of lead paint, shows her natural coloring slightly tanned from time spent outdoors with a few freckles that would be considered scandalous in fashionable society. Her waist, uncorseted, is proportional to her body, rather than geometrically impossible. Her hair, unbleached and unpowdered, is a natural brown that shines with health rather than chemical damage. She's not beautiful by medieval standards. She's something that medieval culture has taught you to value far less. She's vital, energetic, and obviously comfortable in her own skin. Eleanor, she says, and her voice is stronger than you remember, less breathy and weak. I didn't expect to see you today, especially looking. She pauses, taking in your simple dress and unpainted face. You look different. So do you? You reply, and you mean it as a compliment, though you're not sure she'll take it that way. Anne invites you in, and her chambers reveal the extent of her transformation. The elaborate beauty supplies that once dominated her dressing table have been replaced with simple, practical items. The specially designed furniture for accommodating corseted women has been exchanged for normal chairs and tables. The room feels like a place where someone actually lives, rather than a stage set for displaying artificial beauty. I know the others are coming this afternoon, Anne says as she pours you tea with steady hands. No mercury trimmer, you notice. Marguerite sent word that they're concerned about my choices. Are you concerned about your choices, you ask? Anne considers the question seriously. Every day, she admits. I've been part of this world since I was 12 years old. Everything I know about being a woman, about being valuable, about being accepted in society, all of it is tied to those beauty standards. She sits across from you, and you notice that she moves with a fluidity that corseted women lose after years of restriction. But I also know that I was dying. Not metaphorically, not romantically, literally dying from the beauty treatments that were supposed to make me more attractive. How did you know, you ask? My hair was falling out in chunks. I had seizures from the mercury poisoning. My vision was getting worse from the antimony. I couldn't eat enough to maintain my strength because of the corseting. And one morning I woke up and realized that I was 23 years old and felt like I was 80. She pauses, staring into her tea. I started wondering what I would look like, how I would feel, who I might be if I stopped trying to meet standards that were slowly killing me. And it's been 3 months now. My hair is growing back. My seizures have stopped. I can see clearly again. I can eat full meals and walk long distances and think clearly without the constant fog of lead poisoning. Anne looks at you directly, and you can see something in her eyes that you haven't seen in the eyes of fashionable women for years. Alertness, energy, life. But she continues, I'm also completely alone. No invitations to social gatherings. No marriage prospects. No place in the court society that used to define my entire world. I've traded beauty for health, and society has made it clear that it considers this a poor exchange. You sit in silence for a moment, absorbing the reality of Anne's situation. She's healthier, stronger, more vital than she's been in years. She's also socially dead, cut off from the world that once surrounded her, isolated by her choice to prioritize her well-being over her appearance. Do you regret it, you ask? Anne considers carefully before answering. I regret that those are the only choices available to women in our society. Be beautiful and slowly die, or be healthy and exist alone. But do I regret choosing to live? No. The conversation continues for the next hour, during which Anne tells you about the realities of abandoning medieval beauty standards, the physical recovery, how long it took for the lead poisoning symptoms to fade, how her body readjusted to normal breathing and eating, the social consequences, the whispered comments, the lost friendships, the complete exclusion from fashionable society, but also the discoveries what it feels like to walk long distances without exhaustion, to think clearly without the mental fog of chronic poisoning, to exist in her body as something other than a decorative object designed for others' viewing pleasure. The strangest thing Anne says is that I had to learn how to be myself again. I had been performing the role of a beautiful woman for so long that I'd forgotten who I was underneath all the paint and corseting. As your visit draws to a close, you realize that Anne has given you something invaluable, a glimpse of what life looks like on the other side of medieval beauty culture. It's not perfect, the social isolation is real and painful, but it's also not the disaster that fashionable society would have you believe. Women can survive, even thrive, without slowly poisoning themselves for the sake of appearance. The choice exists, even if society makes it as difficult and lonely as possible. When you prepare to leave, Anne walks you to the door. Eleanor. She says, whatever you decide about your own choices, remember that you do have choices. Society wants women to believe that there's only one acceptable way to exist, but that's not true. As you walk back to your own chambers, you carry with you the image of a woman who chose differently, who decided that her life was worth more than her ability to conform to impossible beauty standards. In a few hours, you'll be expected to join the other court ladies in their intervention, trying to convince Anne to return to the world of beautiful suffering that